in a split second, your whole life can change. And next thing you know, you was here, and then you can end up somewhere else where you don't want to be for hella long, and then you're gonna be in there thinking about all the stuff I should have done, thinking about all the people you love and how they're outside and you're locked up, looking at the walls or your TV. They're walking around. They can eat whenever they want. You feel me? Man, I took my freedom for granted until I got locked up.
Asian and Pacific Islander youth and parents face many obstacles when encountering the juvenile justice system.
My experience, I would say a bad experience because I really don't know what to do.
When we went to court, it was so difficult to understand the system and the message, the word that they were using.
I didn't know where to go to get help. I just go where they tell me to go and do what they tell me to do.
When we met with the lawyer, they told us that we have chance to say this and that, but we didn't understand, what we're supposed to say, and without the translation, it was very difficult.
I'm speaking this as, my parents. They want to help me, but they don't know how to help me, and I guess it hurt them deeply. You know what I'm saying? Like, if your child's in trouble and you don't know what to do.
Just because the police, the district attorney, or the probation officer thinks your child should be incarcerated, keep in mind there may be better options. In Oakland, even though Asian and Pacific Islander youth are arrested at a lower rate than others, once arrested, they have the highest conviction rate of all races. Are Asian and Pacific Islander youth more criminal than other kids? The truth is they are less prepared to navigate through the system.
I think navigating through the juvenile justice system can be very complicated. And if you aren't informed, if you don't have access to the right information or to specific resources, it can be very overwhelming for a young person and their families.
Parents have children interpreting for them. When they speak to a probation officer or a police officer, they have no idea how to access services. There is a language barrier at virtually every stage of the juvenile proceeding.
Because our culture is so different from this American culture, and our kids are raised in here, I think we have different parenting skill and a lack of education.
You have these cultural barriers that don't make it easy for a parent to understand fully some of the different laws and the different procedures that go on in a courtroom. They can get lost.
Parents, communicate. If you don't know how the system works, ask someone, like your child's probation officer. If you aren't comfortable speaking English, ask for a translator.
When I learned about he was arrested, I felt like my heart was melting.
I guess it embarrassed my parents, for having a child like me who get in trouble and stuff like that, and it make my parents look bad.
There's no one can advocate for myself. If my children are in trouble, even though we feel so shameful, we have to try to find a way to help.
Key figures. There are key figures that you will encounter as you go through the juvenile justice system. Know the people who will decide your child's future. Public defender is a lawyer appointed by the state to represent the youth.
Each child will be appointed a free lawyer. Many times they are public defenders or they can be contract attorneys. Later on, if there is a determination by the judge that the parent has resources, the court can charge attorney's fees.
Parents, make sure you have an attorney. It is advisable to hire a private attorney. If you cannot afford one, ask the police or the probation officer for one. Please refer to your pamphlet for more advice. District attorney is a lawyer who represents the state. The DA is the person who files charges in a criminal case.
I've told people, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, like, I'm not a social worker. My job is not to, keep your kid out of trouble. I decide if I'm going to charge them with a crime or ask that they be sent somewhere as a result of a conviction for it.
Remember, the DA's job is not to do what is best for your child. Their job is to protect society and punish offenders. Judge, the person who hears the case in court and decides what will happen to the youth if the charges are found to be true.
The main responsibility is to try to do whatever is in the best interest of the child. It means do whatever needs to be done to try and effectuate rehabilitation.
The judge is the most important person, as he or she will decide the outcome of your child's case. Probation officer, the person responsible for the youth's case and writing a report that tells the court on the best way to proceed regarding the youth.
Probation officer present all the facts to the judge. Everything they say will be very important. The ultimate goal, I can say, is for the protection of the public. And the second goal will be rehabilitation of the probationers. In juvenile, we call them minor.
Make sure that you know exactly who the probation officer is, and you have the probation officer's phone number and any other method or manner of contact that the probation officer has.
Probation officer can actually do a lot of things, trying to just either reprimand the minor and the parents, or refer him or her to some sort of program, anger management, if they fight, things like that. So we kind of divert the kid, making the referral to the district attorney. So after they completed all those conditions, we can close the case within the probation department. They don't even have to go through the whole process.
Parents, communicate. What the probation officer knows and thinks about your child will make a difference in whether to press charges and sentencing. There are many different steps and procedures within the juvenile justice system. Please follow along with your diagram to see how the process works. Getting arrested.
I was grabbed by the police and I was thrown to the fence. And I was scared, I guess, because that is my first time getting arrested.
Okay. Anytime a child is arrested or a probation officer speaks to the child regarding an incident, the police or probation officer has to read the child their Miranda rights, and that is, you have a right to a lawyer. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed to represent you. Do you understand these rights? Do you give up these rights? What this means is the Constitution affords everybody the right to remain silent. You can never be forced to admit that you committed a crime and that your own statements can be used against you in a court of law.
I recommend them not to say anything. Just keep quiet, and sometimes the officer do threaten you and stuff, but it's just best if you just don't say nothing to them.
It is extremely important that you contact an attorney before you speak to a police or probation officer. And you can always contact your local public defender's office or call any attorney out of the local bar association.
Whether detained or arrested and given a notice to appear at a later date, the first interview with the probation officer is very important.
And then the probation officer interviewed me, and they asked the same question that the other officer asked me that night I got arrested. How are you doing? How, are you in school? Is there any problems at home? Stuff like that, to see where you're at. I guess what's your role in society.
At the juvenile hall, the child will meet with a probation officer, and that probation officer will call the parent. It's very important for the parent to provide positive information to the probation officer to show that it is safe for their child to come home and that they will take care of their child.
Ask teachers, coaches, people at church, and staff of programs that your child participates in for letters of support. Show these to your probation officer.
This probation officer will determine whether to conditionally release the kid or not. If they're not released, then the detention hearing will be held really very soon. So the judge will decide, whether to detain the kid or to release him or her.
If the child hasn't been detained, then they just come to court and they will meet with a probation officer. That first court appearance is really meeting with a probation officer. Generally, it is in the courthouse. It is very important for the parent to come with the child to talk to the probation officer and talk about whether their child is doing well or not. If the child is not doing well, it is extremely important that the parents speak to an attorney first.
After the first meeting with your probation officer, you will find out if charges can be filed and if your child can come home soon.
If it's minor cases that the probation officer has the discretion not to refer the case to the district attorneys.
If the probation officer decides that they want to keep the child in custody, there will be a petition that has to be filed, and that petition states what that child will be charged with, which is a criminal offense.
If charges are filed, there is a first jurisdictional hearing, the detention hearing.
During the court proceedings, the first court appearance is called the detention hearing. And at the detention hearing, it is very, very important for the parents to come to court.
Parents and who shows up for you becomes very important in the trust relationship of the court in terms of a release. And so any stable family that shows up in a courtroom and say, we are law-abiding people who've given good values and don't agree with what these accusations are going to be heard by the court, as opposed to no family being there.
Attend every court hearing and speak up in support of your child. Ask for an interpreter if you feel more comfortable speaking in your own language.
At that court appearance, which is the first court appearance, a detention hearing, the attorney will be speaking to the parents, and it's very important for the parents to speak very freely and provide as much information as they can to the attorney so that the attorney can advocate in the right way. It's important for the attorney to have any positive information so that the attorney can file motions for diversion or try to negotiate a charge that might be less than what your child is charged with.
In that way, I think it's up to the parent and the youth, but especially the parent, to become informed and understand what they can do.
No matter how angry or frustrated you are, do not complain about your child to the police, probation officer, or the judge.
It is extremely important for you to be very well prepared. And it is important for the child to be dressed appropriately. They need to dress like they're going to church or they're going to some important social function. So they need to make a good impression on the judges.
Parents, in court, show you are willing to work with programs and keep an eye on your child. Pre-trial. There may be a possibility that the case can be settled without a trial. If the juvenile admits to the charges, then no trial is necessary. Ask your attorney for advice.
The probation officer will interview the minor and the guardians or the parents to gather information how much control the guardians or the parents have on the kid, whether they're capable of taking care of the kid. And so they just present the information to the court. For the pretrial report, that's it.
Between the first court appearance, the detention hearing, there will be a pretrial where the attorney for the child and the district attorney, who is the attorney for the state, will try to negotiate the case and try to work out some type of plea offer instead of going to trial. If the case settles at pretrial, there would be no trial. And what that generally means is that there would be an admission by the child that he or she had committed an offense and that it was true.
There's a finding in the pretrial hearing, then there will be a dispo hearing in about 2 weeks.
And usually the PD will often recommend that a student or that a young person make some kind of plea, either admit some guilt in exchange for a shorter sentence, a lighter sentence, really in the efforts to prevent their case from going to trial. If a young person is guilty and there's no way to hide that fact or get around that fact, sometimes making a lesser plea will be to their advantage. But oftentimes, a parent will take the plea or take that option to not go to trial and have the child admit the guilt because it's presented in a way that is really favorable to them. But the truth of the matter is that I don't think that's always the best decision.
If the case does not settle at pretrial, then a trial would occur.
The trial. When a judge hears evidence from the DA and the youth's lawyer about charges, the judge alone will decide if the charges are true.
At the trial, if the judge finds that your child committed a crime, then the case goes to disposition. Or if at any time from the first court appearance and through pretrial or possibly trial that your child admits to a charge, which is what we call a plea offer, the case will go to disposition. In adult courts, we call this sentencing.
Disposition hearing. When a judge decides the sentence and placement of the youth after reading the report written by the probation officer.
When they're doing the disposition report, which is the sentencing report, the probation officer will, at that point, will evaluate or assess. The kid just have to show how much effort or how much they want to make a change. And all the systems around him, if they can provide that kind of support for his positive behavioral change.
At the sentencing, there are a number of options that are available. The child could be placed back home in the community on regular wardship probation. We call it wardship, and that's probation. Probation generally runs for 1 year. The child could be placed on what we call 725A probation, and that is non-wardship probation, and this runs for 6 months. Your child could be taken out of the home and be sent to a group home. And group homes, the child could live in a group home for a year, sometimes even more. Child can be sent to a county camp. Or if the charges were very serious, the child could be sent to the Department of Juvenile Justice, which is prison for kids.
Please look at your pamphlet for an explanation of different sentencing options. Again, parental support can impact the judge's decision in sentencing your child. Probation.
They have to demonstrate to the probation officer they have done something wrong. Secondly, is that they make an effort of trying to do something different. They don't hang around with the same group of people. They don't go out to the same spot that they used to go, but then they stay home a lot. They help the parents to do the chores. They take care of the siblings. They go to school more often. Attendance becoming very good. And for the parent, it's important to show the probation officer what have they done, or what can they do to help the kid.
Look into resources and figure out what programs your child can participate in. This will help your child and also help convince your child's PO that your child is being productive. Final words of advice.
It is that much more difficult for children of immigrant families to really negotiate successfully out of the system.
Families need to be educated. They need to know what the process is. They need to know how it works.
My recommendation and suggestion is utilize the community resources to reach me, us.
So it's very important for community-based organizations to link up with juvenile justice system players so that they can help advocate effectively and in a culturally proficient way.
If having a chance, my part is to break down to my parents what happened, not to let them feel that like they can't do nothing, like get them more involved.
A lot of the Asian cultures, out of respect, out of reverence, they often give up a lot of authority to figures like teachers in the schools or to police officers, to judges in the courts. And it's a form of reverence and respect, saying, you're in this position of power, so I respect you enough to know that you know what's best for my child, and I give that up to you. Here in this country, however, it's not always like that. I think it's assumed and expected that the parents be the first and foremost advocate for their child.
A lot of Asian parents, they really trust police. They really respect police officers and respect whoever has authority. Those parents need to learn, what's the, there are some good officer and bad officer. There are some good lawyer and bad lawyer.
I think a lot of the judges and the PDs will say, well, it's up to you as a parent to get to the bottom of the situation, to instill discipline, to make sure this child, stays within the limits of the law, and when they do come in the courtroom, that you are also the most informed and you're the strongest advocate for them. But that's not always the case with Asian families.
There are a lot of things they need to learn in order to help the kids, not just point a finger to the kids, say you're bad and they're always right.
Feel your parents in, don't let them in the dark. And, I guess you could go through it together, It's better together than, by yourself.
Parents, you can make a difference when your child is arrested. Communicate, ask questions, and show your support. This is an extremely stressful time for your child. It is worth discussing what problems have led to their involvement in the system. Many youth have problems with drugs, alcohol, depression, or their anger. Please refer to your pamphlet for community organizations that can help. Many have programs for families with limited financial means. This video was created by the Asian and Pacific Islander Youth Violence Prevention Center with financial help from the following: Alameda County Probation Department, Oakland's Asian Advisory Committee on Crime, the National Council on Crime and Delinquency, Sherry Hirota, board member of the California Wellness Foundation, and Alice Lai Bitker, Alameda County Board of Supervisors, District 3. For more information, please visit our website at www.yvpcenter.org.